Many believe that wealth is a stroke of luck. Being in the right place, waiting for circumstances to change or for someone to open a magical door to abundance. They delude themselves into thinking that fate will intervene to transform their financial life overnight. But that illusion is what keeps them down. They spend more than they earn, they procrastinate, and they surround themselves with people who are not moving forward. The truth is simple: wealth is not built with luck, it is built with discipline. With the ability to break the habits that chain you and replace them with others that set you free. You don't need miracles, you need consistency, vision, and courage. Wealth is built in silence, with small decisions that seem insignificant, but that accumulated form an empire. Your mind is the factory of your destiny. The thoughts you feed it decide whether you will live in scarcity or abundance. If you want a different life, don't wait for the economy to change or for luck to come your way. Change yourself. Break the patterns that bring you down and create the ones that lift you up, because the power is already in your hands, and the time to use it begins today. Most men are trapped in invisible patterns that make them spin in circles, like hamsters on their wheel. They work, they strive, they think they are doing the right thing, but they are still in the same place. Those patterns are invisible chains, inherited beliefs, automatic routines, phrases like "I'm unlucky" or "I wasn't born to be rich." Every time you repeat them, they get buried deep down. I have seen it many times. Men with talent, with dreams, but who fail because they do not understand that what keeps them poor is not the lack of opportunities, but the repetition of wrong decisions. Breaking with that requires brutal honesty. To ask oneself, what am I doing that keeps me in this place? What excuses do I repeat to myself not to take risks? What thoughts make me believe that wealth is for others? These are uncomfortable questions, but necessary. Because transformation begins there, accepting that you were complicit in your own situation. The hard part is not seeing it, the hard part is recognizing it. But if you created those patterns, you can also destroy them. Wealth does not start with money, it starts with mindset. A man with a scarcity mind can receive a fortune and lose it in months. But one with discipline, vision, and control, even if he starts from scratch, can build an empire. The difference is never in the wallet. It is in the mind. And that mind can start training today. Every thought of scarcity must be crushed with a thought of abundance. Every excuse, replaced with action. Every habit that sinks you, replaced with one that lifts you up. This is how you break patterns, not with grandiose gestures, but with firm decisions, repeated until you reprogram your life. Think about it. If every day you spend more than you earn, you are building poverty. If every day you spend less and save a part of it, you are building wealth. If you put off projects because it's not the time, you are building mediocrity. But if every day you take a step, however small, towards what you dream of, you are cultivating greatness. The direction of your life is written in those choices. Patterns are not broken with desire, they are broken with discipline. And discipline starts with clarity, having the courage to say no more of this and act differently. The question is, do you have the courage to break years of habit and build a new path? Because if you do, you will not only change your relationship with money, you will change your relationship with life. Men trapped in scarcity are not trapped because of a lack of intelligence, they are trapped because they live in a cycle of repeated thoughts that end up becoming destiny. Negative beliefs. Fears not faced. Justifications that are repeated over and over again. All this becomes an invisible net that limits them. And the most painful thing, that network was created by the voices of the past. What parents said. What school taught. What friends repeated. Money corrupts. Being rich is not for us. Better to settle and live quietly. Phrases that seem harmless, but end up being seeds that grow to block the path to wealth. Understand this, what you believe in the back of your mind becomes what you accept in reality. And as long as you don't pull up those old roots, you will continue to live under shadows that are not even yours. Breaking a pattern begins with a conscious decision, to question it. To ask yourself, who taught me to conform? Why do I think it is impossible? Why do I think that wealth is only for a few? By looking those questions squarely in the face, a space of freedom appears. And it is in that space where you decide to no longer accept invisible chains. Because wealth does not discriminate. It does not care where you were born, nor how many times you failed. Wealth responds to laws as firm as those of gravity. Discipline, vision, action, and consistency. Sow the right seeds and you will reap abundance. Sow excuses and you will reap scarcity. It's as simple as that. The hard part is not understanding it. The hard part is having the determination to apply new beliefs, and sustaining them long enough to bear fruit. Observe the mind of a man condemned to poverty. He always has an excuse. Now is not the time. I need more money first. When I get lucky, I'll try. And with those phrases he puts off his dreams, until life slips away from him in waiting. The man who builds wealth thinks differently. He does not wait for perfect conditions, because he knows they will never come. He does not look for luck, because he understands that luck is made by action. He is not afraid to start small, because he knows that every empire began with a single step. Therein lies the difference, the mentality. The one that plunges some into mediocrity, and the one that drives others towards abundance. The first pattern you must break is to believe that you can't. Every time your mind says it's not possible, challenge it with facts. Look at stories of men who started with nothing and built empires. No one was born with wealth written on his forehead. They all forged it with discipline and vision. Change the way you think, and you will open new doors. Change the way you act, and you begin to rewrite your destiny. That is the real secret. It's not waiting for confidence to act, it's acting even when there are still doubts. Because action, not desire, is what breaks patterns. Repeated action, day after day, until it transforms your entire life. Understand this, poverty is not an accident. It is the result of accumulated habits. And wealth is not an accident either. It is the consequence of habits cultivated with intention. If you maintain your current patterns, you know where you will end up, more of the same, repeated scarcity. But if you have the courage to break them, to think differently and act differently, there will be no limit to what you can build. The man who defies his own chains is the only one who conquers the freedom that others will never know. And that freedom begins in the mind, but it is consolidated in every action he decides to sustain. Many believe that financial success depends on a stroke of luck, on a miraculous opportunity, but that belief keeps them trapped. Because while they wait, they fail to make the small decisions that, cumulatively, would lift them out of mediocrity. Wealth is not built in an instant. It is built in thousands of ordinary days, where you choose what you will do with your time, your energy, and your money. The pattern that sinks most people is the obsession with shortcuts. For quick results, without sustained effort. That mentality leads them to abandon projects, to run away at the first difficulty, to spend what they don't have, to sow frustration. This impatience, repeated year after year, is the real thief of their dreams. To break with this cycle is to accept a principle: wealth is a process, not an event. Every step counts. Every habit weighs. Every decision builds. You don't need to change everything in one day. You need to commit to not repeating the excuses that have held you back so far. Think about the pattern of consumption. Most spend to impress, to fill gaps, to go with the flow. And every unnecessary purchase is one more brick in the wall of scarcity. Instead, the man who breaks that pattern asks himself before he spends, does this bring me closer or further away from the life I want to build? That single question, repeated every day, can transform his relationship with money. Because wealth is not in what it looks like. It's in what it preserves and multiplies. Another sinking pattern is a lack of clarity. Many say they want to prosper, but never define what wealth means to them. They want more money, but don't know how much. They want freedom, but don't know how to get it. A vague desire only produces vague results. To break that pattern is to put into concrete words what you want to achieve. It's not enough to say, I want to be rich. You must say, I want financial freedom in 10 years, passive income that covers my expenses, and an estate that gives me security and power of choice. That clarity is a compass. It reminds you where to move forward. And it protects him from distractions. The man without direction is easy prey to the same mistakes that have haunted him all his life. Think also of the pattern of comfort. Most do not fail for lack of talent. They fail because they prefer immediate gratification. Today's pleasure, at the expense of tomorrow's abundance. This repeated choice, day after day, condemns to mediocrity. The man who breaks this pattern understands that discomfort is the price of greatness. He accepts to get up earlier, work harder, to save when others spend, invest when others fear, learn when others are distracted. That discomfort separates him from the herd, and lifts you into a life of freedom. Because wealth doesn't come to those who sit and wait. It comes to those who are uncomfortable enough to create it. Each isolated pattern seems small, an unnecessary purchase, a day without effort, an undefined goal. But together they form the invisible structure that sustains poverty. And the only way to tear down that structure is with the repeated force of new conscious choices. Don't expect it to be easy. Expect it to be demanding. Don't expect immediate results. Expect resistance. But also expect with absolute certainty that, if you persist in breaking those patterns, your life will inevitably transform. Daily discipline is more powerful than any stroke of luck. And consistency is the greatest weapon a man can use against mediocrity. You decide what patterns to nurture. And in that decision, is written the destiny of your entire life. The men who build wealth are not always the smartest, nor the most talented. They are the ones who have the courage to sustain new decisions until those decisions become habits. Here is the real secret. Anyone can feel a burst of motivation. Anyone can make promises when inspiration strikes. But few keep the commitment when fatigue, temptation, and comfort set in. It is there, in those quiet moments, that it is defined whether a man breaks his chains or remains a slave to them. The real battle is not fought outside, it is fought in the mind. There, every day, you decide, repeat the same story or write a new one. One of the most destructive patterns is believing that you need the approval of others to move forward. Many men sabotage their growth by waiting for permission, fearing criticism, seeking acceptance. But wealth demands independence of mind, to think for yourself, to hold a course even if no one understands it, to move forward even if you are pointed at. Money and freedom go to men with convictions, never to those who live under the opinion of others. If you want to build abundance, you must get used to being misunderstood, to being called ambitious, to being judged. What for many is arrogance is actually courage. The courage not to follow the patterns of collective mediocrity. Another silent enemy is procrastination. Every time you say, "Tomorrow I will do it," you reinforce the chains that bind you. Wealth is not built in the future, it is built in the present. There is no perfect day to start, the only thing that exists is this instant. And every minute lost becomes a pattern of inaction. Breaking these cycles does not require theory, it requires commitment. Daily practice. Conscious repetition. Writing down your goals, reviewing your progress, questioning your spending, training your mind. Even if the results are not yet visible, that inner work is the foundation of every empire. Let me remind you of something. If this message resonates with you, subscribe to this channel. Here you will find the mindset and tools you need to stay on the right path. And write in the comments which pattern has held you back the most. Naming it is the first step to destroying it. The world is designed for the majority to repeat what they've learned, to live asleep, to never question. But you have the opportunity to break away from all that. And every time you try, you will meet resistance. Internal and external. Yet behind every act of discipline there is power, behind every sacrifice there is freedom, and behind every firm decision, a new level of abundance. There are traps that seem harmless, but kill prosperity. Constant distraction, which steals your attention. The victim mentality, which makes you blame and give up your power. The wrong social circle, which keeps you small. Lack of financial education, which condemns you to repeat scarcity even if you earn more. All these patterns live in the everyday, in the small. But the man who changes the small, changes the big. Don't expect a miracle. Wealth comes accumulating, day after day, election after election. And perhaps the deepest pattern you must face is fear. Fear of failure, of losing, of being judged. That fear paralyzes, disguises it as prudence, realism, waiting for the right moment. But it is nothing more than paralysis. Courage is not the absence of fear, it is deciding to act in spite of it. And every step you take in the midst of fear breaks a pattern and strengthens a new level of self-confidence. Another pattern that condemns man is constant comparison. We live in times where looking at the lives of others is all too easy. You slide a screen and it already seems that everyone is moving faster, that everyone is luckier, that they possess what you lack. But comparison is a slow poison that eats away at the mind. Wealth is not built by looking at the side. It is built with discipline, with your eyes fixed on your own progress. The only true rival is yourself, your habits of yesterday, your excuses of yesteryear, your past decisions. To break this pattern is to stop wasting energy on others and direct all your strength to what you are building, step by step, without distractions. Because while you are paralyzed watching other people's lives, your own life stops. And the more focus you place on your own, the faster you will discover that your success was always in your hands. Another pattern is the excuse of time. I don't have time. 3 words that have buried more dreams than any failure. All men are given the same 24 hours. The difference is in how they use them. The man who repeats that he has no time has already made a choice. He chose the urgent over the important. The man who creates wealth understands that time cannot be found, it is manufactured. He reorganizes, eliminates the useless, protects every minute as if it were gold. To break this pattern is to accept that his problem is not one of hours, but of decisions. And the day you understand that your time is your most valuable currency, you will begin to invest it with the same seriousness with which you invest your money. Because time well managed is transformed into accumulated wealth. Complacency is also deadly. Many advance a little and then stop, satisfied to be barely ahead of the rest. They mistake partial progress for victory. But this complacency lulls them to sleep, robs them of their hunger and binds them to mediocrity disguised as success. The man who builds wealth breaks this pattern by nurturing a vision that always pushes him further. It is not about living empty, but about keeping ambition alive. Each goal achieved should only be the starting point for a greater one. This is how opportunities multiply, with an eternal commitment to never settle. Breaking these patterns will not be comfortable or popular. It will require discipline, solitude, and renunciation. But every time you challenge an old habit, you will be reaffirming a principle that few understand. Wealth is not a privilege, it is a right to be conquered with responsibility and conscious effort. You can keep repeating the same justifications that sink you, or you can rise up and build new patterns that elevate you. That choice, although it may seem invisible, will define the course of your entire life. Another deceptive pattern is the search for immediate pleasure. Many men sink because they mistake momentary satisfaction for real happiness. They spend what they don't have and on what they don't need, just to feel a few seconds of relief. They eat, buy, get distracted, get into debt, and the next day they are still in the same place, or worse. This cycle is an invisible prison. The mind becomes accustomed to the easy dopamine and becomes incapable of sustaining discipline. The man who breaks this pattern learns to delay gratification. He understands that today's discomfort is tomorrow's abundance. To resist, to save, to invest rather than spend. This separates him from those who will live chained to scarcity. Another devastating pattern is lack of commitment. Many men start with enthusiasm, but give up at the first hurdle. They change their goals every few weeks, believing that the solution lies in trying something different, when what is lacking is persistence. Wealth is built with constancy, with the decision to stay even when progress is slow. The man who succeeds is the one who says, "I'll do this until it works, whatever it takes." That mentality breaks the inertia of abandonment and forges the power of perseverance. For wealth comes not to the quickest, but to the one who refuses to give up. Think also of the pattern of clutter. A disorganized man loses money, time, and energy every day without realizing it. His accounts are in chaos, his goals are unclear, his environment reflects confusion. But what he does not see is that this external disorder is a reflection of his internal disorder. Wealth demands structure. Every weight with purpose, every hour with a destination, every action with meaning. Breaking this pattern means planning, keeping records, creating systems. That order becomes power, because it frees your mind to focus on what is essential: creating, investing, building. The man who lives in order demonstrates that he is prepared to receive abundance. Another dangerous pattern is wanting to please everyone. The man who seeks constant approval sacrifices his wealth in order not to be inconvenienced. He lends money that is never returned, spends to impress, gives time to those who do not value him. And in the end he remains empty. To break this pattern is to learn to say no firmly. To set limits. To prioritize your vision over opinions. It's not selfishness, it's strategy. True generosity only comes from abundance, and you can't give what you haven't built first. Breaking these patterns may seem like a sacrifice, but it is a liberation. When you give up immediate pleasure, you discover lasting satisfaction. When you stop giving up, you gain confidence. When you order your life, you experience clarity. When you stop seeking approval, you find freedom. These are the invisible foundations of wealth: mindset, structure, and discipline. If you hold them firmly, abundance ceases to be a distant dream and becomes an inevitable consequence. Many believe that working longer hours is enough, as if fatigue guarantees success. But confusing activity with productivity is another trap. They spend their days busy, putting out fires, solving the little things, and they don't move forward. They are trapped in the illusion of movement, but without direction. Breaking this pattern requires distinguishing the urgent from the important. The urgent screams. The important whispers. The man who breaks this cycle devotes his best hours to what multiplies his future, even if he does not see immediate results. That is the difference between living in scarcity and building abundance. Another pattern is lack of preparation. Many dream of opportunities, but when they come they are not ready. And then they say they were unlucky. The truth is that luck favors the prepared, the one who studied, the one who saved, the one who trained, the one who invested in himself. Breaking this pattern means living in a state of permanent preparation. Every book read, every skill, every relationship cultivated is invisible capital that one day becomes tangible wealth. There is also the pattern of short-sightedness. Thinking only about making it through the week, covering the fortnight, getting by. But wealth is built with a long-term vision. Every decision made today has an impact in 10 years. Saving is not losing, it is multiplying. To invest is not to risk, it is to build. To break this pattern is to think beyond the present, because those who only live in today will always be slaves of urgency. Self-deception is another enemy. That habit of telling oneself I am doing well when it is not true. That habit of minimizing financial problems and postponing solutions. Breaking this pattern requires brutal honesty with oneself. To look squarely at your accounts, your habits, your results without excuses. Because the man who lies to himself will never be free. The one who faces the truth, even if it hurts, opens the door to a different life. Breaking patterns is not only will, it is strategy. You need clarity, preparation, vision, and truth. With these weapons you can destroy any cycle of mediocrity. And even if it hurts to let go of the old, the discomfort of change will always be lighter than the weight of a life in scarcity. An even deeper pattern is that of limited identity. Many accept without question that they are ordinary men, destined for little. And that belief shapes their entire existence. For when a man believes he cannot, he acts like someone who cannot. And he ends up building a life where indeed, he cannot. The definitive change occurs when he decides to see himself differently, not as a victim, not as a spectator, but as the architect of his destiny. To change one's identity is to change every action and every result. Breaking the patterns that sink you is an act of silent rebellion. It is to stand up against invisible chains, against inherited fears, against collective mediocrity. Every time he says enough, he proclaims that he deserves more. Because wealth is not the privilege of a few, it is the consequence of those who dare to claim it. But remember, this transformation is not measured in a day, it is measured in years. Breaking patterns is a daily war against comfort, against distraction, against the temptation to go back to the old. And this war can only be won with perseverance. Every morning you have two paths: repeat the same old story or write a new one. Choose the second. Because the pain of discipline is fleeting, but the pain of regret will haunt you all your life. When a man breaks his patterns, he not only transforms his pocketbook, he transforms his existence. He gains clarity, strength, freedom. He discovers that true wealth is not money, it is being able to choose, being able to say no, being able to live by his own rules. That is the real prize, freedom. But that freedom comes at a price. Destroy the old, build the new. Leave the easy, embrace the difficult. Abandon the known to enter the extraordinary. Today you are faced with that decision. You can repeat the old, or you can break it all and start over. There are no excuses, no perfect tomorrow, no shortcuts. There is only this moment. And if you take advantage of it, you will discover that abundance has always been waiting for you, ready to be delivered to whoever has the courage to claim it. Break the patterns that sink you, create the ones that lift you up. Become the man you were born to be. Because life does not give you what you want. It gives you what you demand with your actions.